Hi guys, welcome back. And this time around, I'm bringing you two IEMs in this review. One is the EPZ Q5 Pro. This is the latest single dynamic from EPZ, and the other one is an IEM that has been around maybe for about a month or just over a little bit of a month, a month, which is the InAwaken Dawn. This is a product from LINSOUL, and I've only seen available at LINSOUL or at DD Audio on AliExpress, which is basically LINSOUL as well. And they are two single dynamics priced at around the 55 to $60 price bracket, depends on where you're getting it from. And they are, part of this wave of single dynamics that we've seen throughout the whole of 2024 and through the later part of 2023, which have got a surprisingly well executed tuning for a product which is more competitively priced. Coupled with an excellent build quality in terms of their construction, coupled with decent accessories, some better, some worse. But anyway, these are two extremely interesting single dynamics in this highly competitive, single DD price point. Anyway, I have brought out a few other IEMs here to also serve as somewhat of a comparison, if you want to call it that way. Although ultimately there isn't really a winner, let's put it that way here. There are, each one of these IEMs have got their particular, let's say, strong points, be it performance, be it build, be it price, whatever. But ultimately they all have one common denominator, which is a very similar sound, although there are two distinctions in this sound department as well. Anyway, what are the IEMs that I've got here? From EPZ, I thought it would only be becoming to also have the previous EPZs, which are single dynamics and which are currently available. I'm talking about the G10, which is their supposedly gaming IEM, but was from day one a bundle of surprise in terms of how good it actually sounds playing music. We've got then the Q1 Pro, and we've got the original Q5. I've also got on top the Thorin Conch, and then of course the Q5 Pro here, and the Dawn, the InAwaken Dawn. All of these IEMs have adopted different, different diaphragm materials, different or varying impedances as well. But again, like I say, the interesting thing is when you graph them like I have, they all end up graphing very similar, very similar. And this isn't or shouldn't come as a surprise. I mean, basically, let's be honest about it. The wheel has been invented, so once this formula, which is the one that has been used here, is implemented, it will, the differences are not gonna be monumental. The differences then will basically be based on how good the driver is, and on what sort of material probably is being used by those drivers. Is it DLC? Is it CNT? Is it LCP? Is it just a normal PET driver? So all of the diaphragm material will basically dictate ultimately the slight nuances that exist in the sound. Anyway, I'll start here with the G10. It's an IEM that EPZ launched, trying to or going into or entering the IEM focused at gaming. It uses an LCP driver, a 32 ohm impedance, and the surprise here was that when I got the G10 and I then started listening to the G10, I was actually pretty much blown away, because I was just not expecting the level of performance that I was getting from it. I mean, being a gaming IEM, I thought the tuning would have been a tuning which was going to basically just focus on maybe a lot of bass power, a lot of upper mids and upper mids to emphasize certain aspects of gaming and so on. But no, when I actually measured it, I was very surprised. An extremely well executed bass, no bleeding to the mids, transitioning into those mids flawlessly, upper mids. Everything was spotless, if anything, and this is due to the fact that it is an LCP driver, and LCP drivers usually have a tendency of being slightly warmer in the timbre and the tonality. There wasn't a lot of extension. There isn't a lot of extension past 10K. What there is in terms of extension past 10K is more than adequate and more than balanced out with the rest of the response. But the overall sound, is a nice, warm, smooth sound. That sort of sound carried over to the Q1 Pro. I'm not sure if it is exactly the same driver. It's also an LCP driver. It's also 32 ohms. It could probably be the same driver, or maybe a slight variation in terms of the generation of the driver, but it's also an LCP driver. And once again, what we get here is a nice, warm type of sound, which definitely, it's not going to be fatiguing. It's not going to be a sound which is going to murder your ears or anything of the sort. Like I said, LCP driver, nice warm timbre and tonality with a nice bass, very nicely tuned across the board. I did find that the Q1 Pro does work nicely not only with these 07 tips that I've got here, but it also does work nicely with the BGVP wide bores. Very nicely, actually. With the BGV wide bores, I would even say you maybe get a smidge more soundstage. But phenomenal driver, trust me. Phenomenal IEM as well. Nothing to be said. The Q5, the original Q5 was shrouded with a bit of controversy, because they are copying the Meze audio and this and that and blah 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 blah. Yeah, honestly, if we're gonna go down that road, basically all the companies are copying each other. Okay, fine, all right. They could maybe have used a slightly different aesthetic to maybe not have been subjected to so much criticism, but the reality is the CNT driver that they used here is being extremely well implemented, and that shows itself in the sound. It's got a bass which is a little bit I wouldn't say it's a superior bass to the G10 or to the Q1. I would say it's a bass that comes across as being slightly cleaner, more incisive, because of the fact there's also a little bit more energy in the upper mids and trebles, especially past 10K, and that just cleans up everything. So it's an IEM that would probably please those which are more the fans of a more clinical sound, although the degree of musicality, timbre and tonality that the Q5 offers is again phenomenal. And if there's one thing that I can say openly without any hesitation, is that every single one of the single DDs from EPZ, although not dramatically different from one to the other, they all are very well executed. You can't really say, oh, this one doesn't play. No, they all are very good. So which one, independent of which one you choose, you're going to be satisfied. Obviously, if you like a more, let's say, organic sound, or a sound which is more tendentially organic, old school, maybe these two would be the better options, the G10 and the Q1 Pro. If you like a more clinical type of presentation, then the Q5 will be the option. Although, like I said, when I mention clinical, I'm being a little bit black and white here, because it's got a very high degree of musicality. If anything, the Q5 is very similar to the sound of the EW200 from Simgot. So those that like the EW200 will probably also very much like the sound of the Q5. The Thorin Conch is following more the type of sound presentation used here in the Q5. So a sound which has got a lot of detail up top, upper mids and treble, very detailed, very clean, a very precise, clean bass. It's got a DLC driver as opposed to the LCP or the CNT used here. It's got the adjustable nozzles, which honestly, only one nozzle really makes sense in my opinion. But anyway, this type of sound you get from the conch is again, a really high level sound. Nothing that would be expected from, first of all, from Thorin, because usually Thorin is a bit of a hit or miss. But the fact that they've given a modular cable, the exchangeable nozzles, and offered a product which is still costing under $40, which is that's quite impressive. Just touching up on the issue of the price here, the G10 is around the high $30-$40 bracket. This is about the same thing, so roughly $40. The Q5 is about 50, just over $50. This is a little bit more, the Q5 Pro, and the Dawn about the same thing as the Thorin Conch is in the low 30s, sometimes even coming down into the 20s. So I mean, in terms of value for money, it's the definite winner here. Let's make that perfectly clear. And then that brings us here to the Dawn and to the Q5 Pro. The Q5 Pro, this is not the stock cable. The stock cable is this cable here, which I'm not going to be saying that I was impressed, because I'm not. The cable is a little bit, it's got this it's not very pliable. No, I didn't like it. I really enjoyed the cable of the Dawn, on the other hand. Really nice cable, really soft, very, very nice. But anyway, let's finish up here first with the Q5 Pro. The Q5 Pro uses a newer generation driver that was used in the Q5, so it's also a CNT driver, but a later generation. The shell has changed, not in its body, but in its faceplate design. So I hope there's not going to be any criticisms this time. It's a resin printed shell, so really nicely. Excuse me. But the biggest change is the fact that excuse me. But the biggest change here is the fact that they're now using a 2-pin connector as opposed to the MMCX that was used in the Q5. I'm not using the stock cable, as you guys can see. And as I was saying, when you initially listen to the Q5 Pro and you listen to the Q5, you kind of think, oh, but they sound similar. But then after you start listening a little bit more and really start digging into the details of certain songs and seeing how they come across or how they don't come across, you start picking up in the differences. To start with, this is a 32 ohm impedance driver being used here. That one there is a 26 ohm impedance driver. But at the same volume level on my NX7, if I set the volume at the same level, this actually sounds louder than that. It sounds louder, which I was surprised. They're both stated as having the same sensitivity, 109 decibels. But anyway, this plays louder, not a lot louder, but a little bit louder. But the difference that you do notice between this and the Q5, so between the Q5 Pro and the Q5, the original Q5, is that the upper registers, so upper, mids, and treble, are just that extra little bit more smooth, a little well, not smooth, a little bit more well executed. Like I said, and I'll show you the graphs afterwards, they graph identical. The difference is minimal. I went to the trouble of trying not only the stock tips, which I'm using here on the Q5 Pro, on both of them, as using as well those these electro type tips as well on both of them, and always the graph was basically the same. I mean, the differences are differences which can be put down to driver variance, but trust me, they graphed almost identical, and they sound, for the most part, in an initial first listen, they sound the same. However, like I said, after listening to them a little bit more, and I would recommend something along the lines of a Yuki, or using a similar chip to the Yuki 43198 or 43191, so Cyrus chip, as opposed to maybe an ESS chip, or maybe even use an AKM. I just feel that they just match the sound that these IEMs are capable of giving in a more polished manner. Okay, So the difference basically that exists here between the Q5 Pro, like I said, to the Q5 is a little bit more polished in the way that the upper mids and treble come across. Bass is basically the same. It's clean, it's detailed. The drivers, because of the fact that you have that energy up top, really, it's a very clean bass. It's a bass which the Conch is the only one that has. Then the bass of these three is basically the same, and it's due to the fact that you have that extra energy up top in the frequency range. Mids are flawless. Male and female vocals came across excellent. I mean, like I said, really nothing to be said. It was just then in the upper registers, upper mids, upper treble, the cymbals, they just are a little bit more smooth, a little bit more elegant, a little bit more just. I mean, it's, trust me. I picked up on this because I was listening in a quiet room and under ideal conditions. If I was listening to this outside walking or in the metro or whatever, I wouldn't pick up the difference. I'll be honest, I wouldn't. So it's nonsense for me to say that I would, because I wouldn't. Maybe some of you which have better hearing than me might be able to do that feat, but I honestly have a hard time believing you will. So under ideal conditions, okay, yes, you will pick up on the Q5 Pro being just that little bit more polished than the Q5. As for the Dawn uses an 11.2 millimeter driver, which has got its claim to fame is the fact that it's purple. Hope you guys can see it there. Okay, it's a nice shell. It's simple but nice. It's like I said, it's 11.2 millimeter driver, and the tuning that it follows is a tuning which is more along the lines of the Q1 Pro or the G10, which means what? It means that you don't have as much extension up top in the upper mids and treble, or past 10K, let's put it that way, and you got a warmer, more cozy kind of organic type of sound. So basically, you have those two distinct groups of sounds. These three, so the G10, the Q1 Pro, and the Dawn, are more organic, more warmer, more timbre, tonality, more cozy kind of sound. It's a warmer type of sound, okay? And then you have the Q5 Pro, the Q5, and the Conch, which have got the ability to be a little bit more clinical, a little bit more detailed. And the difference between the three of them, honestly, is minimal, and you can only pick up on it under ideal conditions. With regards to the Q5 Pro compared to the Conch, I only really picked up again on that difference of this being just that little bit more elegant in its presentation in the upper registers under ideal conditions, under being in a quiet room like I am right now. Otherwise, I really would not be able to tell them apart. I really wouldn't. Fit. Sorry, let me just rewind here a little bit, and we'll get to that. Let me just get back here to the Dawn. I was really jumping ahead. As for the sound of the Dawn, bass is really nice. It's comparatively to the Q5 Pro, I would say the bass is a little bit slower, not as incisive, not as hard hitting. But it's really not that it isn't. It's just the fact that it hasn't got as much detail up top to just complement that cleanliness of the bass. It's an 11.2 millimeter driver, so it's got more than enough power. It's got more than enough slam. Like I said, mid bass, no bleeding to the mids. Mid bass is phenomenal. Male vocals, female vocals, drums, very nice sounding IEM. Only the upper registers are a little bit more subdued. All of this is let's say a justification for you now to, if you for example own a G10 or own a Q1 Pro, to go buy the Dawn? Honestly, really no. And the same applies again if you have a Conch, or if you have a Q5. Is the Q5 Pro now the option to go buy? Get rid of those and go buy? No. Let's be again honest and realistic and down to earth. No. Now, if you are in the market to buy, and you are choosing, and depending on what prices you can get these IEMs for, then that's a different story. Undeniably, and I'm not going to once again deny this. The one that has the best value for money here is the Conch, without a doubt. The only issue with the Conch or with some of TRN products is that sometimes their quality control is not exactly ideal. I've got maybe 5 or 6 pairs, and of those 5 or 6 pairs, one, for example, didn't have exemplary driver matching, but I sorted it out. I was able to sort it out. That doesn't mean that others will be able to do it. It takes a little bit of patience, a little bit of time, but I was able to sort it out, that unbalance that existed. My experience with EPZ, and I've also got several or multiple models of some of these IEMs. My experience with EPZ is that quality control is very, very high standard. I've yet to see an EPZ which the driver matching of left and right channel was off, or anything of the sort. No, I've never encountered one EPZ on the TRN, and yes, I have encountered that. With regards to the InAwaken Dawn, I mean, it's a new IEM. I've only got this single one. This single one was perfect in its left and right. I mean, I'm using these wide bores because I found that these wide bores, much like the Q1 Pro with the wide bores, enabled it to have just a little bit more soundstage, a little bit more ambience. So I can't really attest to its quality control, if it's decent or not. But what I can say is that the build quality that it does offer, and this particular unit is perfect. Nothing to be said there. And that's basically it, guys. I mean, like I said, my intention with this review isn't really to pick a winner here or pick a loser. It's really to state that if you are looking for a warmer, more organic type of sound, you have the G10 and the Q1 Pro from EPZ, which are phenomenal IEMs. You now have this option of the InAwaken Dawn. It's all a question of what price you can get it for, but honestly, you won't go wrong with any one of the three. They have very similar sounds. That's the truth. With regards to the Conch, the Q5 and the Q5 Pro, again, they've all got the same sort of sound, which is a more clinical type of presentation, a little bit more technical prowess, but not major differences that you will no. And once again, it's the price that will be the thing here, the deciding factor. Finally, touching up on the issue of the fit, which I was talking about earlier and then I didn't finish. If there is one thing that I really do like about the Q5 Pro, like I liked already in the original Q5, is as long as you're not using the stock cable, which is a total mess with the way that its hook is done, it just kind of pushes the IEM out. If you use an alternative cable like I've done on either one of them, the fit of these IEMs is, in my ears at least, amazing. They are tiny, they fit right inside my ear canal. I can sleep with them. Nothing that I can be said, and honestly, really nothing that can be said there with regards to that. They fit really, really well. So that's that, guys. I mean, it's basically what sort of sound you like, or what sort of sound are you looking for. Clinical with a high level of musicality, Q5 Pro. More organic, but still with a high level of musicality, and still with more than adequate technicalities. By no means is the technicalities of the Dawn bad. No, they're not. Yes, you will notice a little bit more detail retrieval here on the Q5 Pro. You will notice a little bit maybe slightly better resolution, but honestly, they are both doing what they are supposed to do, and the design premise, I believe, in either case has been perfectly obtained. So that's that. I'll show you now the graphs, and we'll wrap it up. All right, you take care now. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section here for the InAwaken Dawn and the EPZ Q5 Pro. Anyway, let me just take away some of these graphs first so that we can start seeing things with a little bit more clarity. This first graph that I'm showing you is the Q5 Pro. This is left and right channel. As you can see, that's for me perfect driver matching. Left and right, it's perfect. really nothing that I can falter there. This is using the stock white tips, which are exactly the same as in terms of their results to the KB Hero 7s. We're talking about 67, about a 10 dB, roughly a 10 dB gain into the bass, and then into the peak of the let's call it the upper mids. So yeah, okay, fine, you could consider this a V-shaped, although when you, or V signature, although when you do listen to it, it doesn't come across that way. The bass is very nicely executed, clean, no bleeding to the mids. I mean, you can see it's basically flat by 200 hertz. A nice progressive pinna gain, picks it around close to 3K. This area here of 5 will be flattened a little bit more if you use a smaller size tip and are able to introduce the IEM slightly deeper into your ear. This was using the large size tip that I use, and okay, I didn't actually perfectly match here the 8K peak to the peak here there of the coupler, but with the larger size tip, it had a tendency of raising this little area, while when I used the smaller tip, this was basically flat, and this tip also didn't have as much. A nice extension past 10K as well. I mean, really faultless for the most part. The next one I'm going to show you is the original Q5, and as you can see, they are basically identical as well. It's using the same tip. Looking at it graphically, you would say, okay, these are IEMs are the same, and truth be told, yes, they do sound basically the same under normal listening conditions, and you will only really pick up on the difference when you are listening to them. Then a nice quiet room with no noise or no outside interference, then you will pick up on the difference, which is basically in this area here. You notice that things here just come across in a more elegant, more polished manner. Not dramatic, but they do. And this is just a testament to what we've many times talked about, which is the graphs can be the same, but the IEMs will sound different. And this obviously is what is happening here, because the drivers are of a different generation. I believe one is a generation 2, the other one is a generation 3. There's a difference as well in the impedance, and this has reflected itself in a slight variance in terms of the sound. Okay, I'm going to put straight away here the conch, so that you guys can see the 3 IEMs, which have basically got that more extension past 10K. And as you can see, the conch here, look, honestly, it's they are very similar sounding, very similar sounding. The conch, by graph, you would say maybe it's the more polished of the 3, but no, it's the one that just well, not the one that just, with this particular nozzle, which is the nozzle with the red O-ring, okay, this is the one where you notice the least, maybe that slight difference in terms of the polish of the upper mids and treble, so this is the one it's most well done. Let me just cleave here the Q5 Pro and the Conch, so you guys can see the two of them. But honestly, trust me guys, I mean, this difference here, it's not a monumental difference. You will pick up on it relatively easily once you're listening to it in ideal conditions. But the differences that exist mainly are down to the fact that one is using a DLC driver, the other one is using a CNT driver, and there are slight, very minimal differences in terms of the tonality, the timbre, and how this whole area of the upper mids and treble is executed by one and the other. Okay, the more polished of the two is the EPZ, but not by a huge difference. So that's the Q5 Pro done. Let me show you now the InAwaken Dawn, which is this graph. Okay, this is the InAwaken Dawn. Once again, as I mentioned, very nicely done tuning, very nicely done. Great bass, basically flat by 200. again a pin again which picks at around 3, and then a slow drop off with extension past 10k. The interesting thing is, because it's an 11mm driver, and because this area here is actually quite I wouldn't say it's pronounced, but it's noticeable that it's got a warmer type of tonality. You do not notice so much this extension. Also keep in mind that this particular measurement is done with the wide bore tip. With the normal tips that the InAwaken Dawn brings, this is lower. So it's with this tip, with the wide bore tip, the BGVP wide bore, I was able to get a little bit more that sensation of sound stage, a little bit more air. Without it, with a more normal narrower bore tip, this will be lower, and then will resemble more the likes of the Q1 Pro, which is what I've just placed now, and the likes of the G10. Sorry, not this one. The G10 is 11. Sorry, 11. The G10. There we go. Just before I carry on, so that you guys can see what I was talking about, the G10 and the Q1 Pro, they are basically the same thing again. It's the same LCP driver, same impedance. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it's the same driver. They are both having the same sort of sound, everything. When compared then to the Dawn, I'm just going to take away here I'll leave the G10. I fancy more the G10 for the sake of this comparison. I'll leave here the G10. When I put on the Dawn, you can see the similarity. Yes, there's more bass, definitely. It's a slightly bigger driver, and you notice there's a little bit more bass energy. You will pick up on it easily, but the rest, it's basically the same. Trust me, guys, they sound very, very, very similar. There's really not much to be said there. Another thing that I think it's worth just mentioning, comparing the G10, for example, with the Q5. Yes, you do notice that the Q5's got a little bit more energy up top, that extension past 10k, and yes, it does give you a presentation which is a little bit more detailed. However, this difference that exists here in the bass is not perceivable. What you do notice, like I mentioned as well, is that the bass in the Q5 Pro or the Q5 or the Conch for that matter, it just comes across as a little bit cleaner, a little bit more detailed, because of the fact that you got this extra detail up top here. With regards to, let me just take away now this. With regards to the Dawn, the bass is not sluggish. By no means, it's not sluggish, but it is a little bit, it seems to be a little bit less incisive as the bass of the Q5, because of the way, and I've just placed the Q5 Pro now, sorry, because of the way that it's you don't have as much energy up top. Again, by looking at now the Dawn and the Q5 Pro graphing one on top of the other, you would say, okay, the bass is basically the same, and so they're going to sound very similar. And they sound similar, yes, I'm not going to deny, but you notice that there isn't as much detail up top on the InAwaken, and that's why I say the InAwaken will be an IEM that will favor more those that like a more organic sound, or maybe a little bit treble adverse, although by no means is the Q5 Pro aggressive or harsh or anything of the sort, no. And you will notice, yes, that the InAwaken, the Dawn, because of the fact that it's got a slightly larger driver, it will have a bass that is just a little bit more present. But guys, believe me when I tell you, the differences are minimal. Very, very minimal differences. Anyway, just to wrap up things once again, both of these IEMs are really well done. Nothing to be said there. They're not the EPZ, the Q5 Pro is not a huge jump in terms of performance over the original Q5. It isn't, but you will notice that slight difference. If you are in the market of picking up one or the other, I would definitely say go for the Q5 Pro, for the fact that you've got the detachable 2-pin cable, which is a little bit more user friendly than the MMCX on the Q5. And yeah, you will have a more newer product. The price is basically identical, so you can't really go wrong. As for the Dawn, like I said, the Dawn provides us with a sound which is a sound that you get on the G10 or on the Q1 Pro. That sort of sound, warmer tonality. You know, if you're on the market of buying one of these three, and you can pick them up at sensible values, any one of the three, why not maybe consider the Dawn? As simple as that. If on the other hand you already have a Q1 Pro or you have a G10, the Dawn is not going to bring anything new to the table. Honestly, it isn't. That's the truth. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier. The market currently is a market which is just based on kind of repeating the same formula that we know works, and then the driver will play some influence on maybe very minor nuanced differences that will exist, but ultimately it's copy paste, and that's where I think maybe that sometimes we should just breathe a little bit more, relax, and don't get caught up on, no, I have to have the latest IEM because this is now the bomb, this is the one that's really gonna introduce me to or take me to nirvana in terms of my sound experiences. All right, guys, as always, like and subscribe. Any questions, please feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to reply as quickly as possible. Okay, you take care now. Bye bye.